Alright, what's going on, you guys? Welcome to Madrid Hub again. I'm your host, Dr. JOTA. Monday morning, a lot of news to talk about, of course, as usual, here in your channel for all Real Madrid things and news, latest news, updates, and all the stuff on your favorite team, Real Madrid. And today, let me tell you what, today we will be talking about four big names, the big four in Real Madrid. We will be talking about Vinicius Jr., Eden Hazard, Kylian Mbappe, and of course Erling Haaland, but it's going to be for different reasons because all of them have different stories and different situations. We have to comment, we have to analyze, and we have to take a deep dive into it. So let's get started talking about, for example, Eden Hazard. And why is that? The reason is because like 1 hour ago, Tomás González Martín, ABC News, Spain, he claims Eden Hazard is right now on the market. I mean, the player is for sale and Real Madrid is not interested anymore in prolonging or extending his career in Real Madrid. So that means if any single decent offer for the player comes through in the next several months, in the next weeks to Real Madrid, they will consider to sell the player. The reason for that is because, as you can imagine, Eden Hazard hasn't been able to take off this third season in Madrid. And of course, the most problematic thing when it comes to Eden Hazard, it is pretty much the salary. I mean, there are different circumstances and reasons why Real Madrid wants to get rid of the player. But overall, there's one which is, in my opinion, the most important, which is the salary. Because if you have another player who is making about, I don't know, say 5 million a year, 5 million per season, or something like that, the probability for him to stay in Real Madrid is a little bit higher. Because if they don't occupy a lot of space in the books, I mean, financial-wise, Real Madrid, it's okay and can say, okay, let's keep this player for now. Let's save this player and see if maybe in the future he whether explodes or maybe just quit or whatever. But there's no reason for, hurry up and sell the player. However, when it comes to Eden Hazard, situation is completely different. Because the Belgian player is one or has one of the highest salaries in Madrid. Alongside Gareth Bale, Eden Hazard makes about 15 million euros per season in Real Madrid. And that is so problematic, especially for a player who is not returning anything to Los Madridistas, to Real Madrid. So that's why his salary is so heavy in the books. And of course, all the things he is providing to Real Madrid are not good enough to think about in a possible, extension. I mean, not extension of the contract because he still has his contract and stuff like that. But it is too much for Florentino Perez to think that the player, it's okay if he stays or remains in Real Madrid until the end of the contract. On the other hand, Florentino Perez is considering that is a much better option for Real Madrid. If another single offer, if a good offer comes through from any other single team, from the Premier League or any other country in Europe, they will review the offer, and if the offer is good enough, they would probably say, okay, let's negotiate for this player because the money is good, because they are paying enough. Of course, we will have to assume the price of Eden Hazard is no longer the price it used to. We are not going to sell the player for about 100 million or something like that. That is almost impossible. We paid 150 years ago, but not now. His worth currently is, I don't know, maybe 40 to 50 million, but that's it. So Real Madrid is assuming that selling the player will be a more than, a huge loss for us, and we have to assume that loss. You know what I'm saying? So, but we are okay with that. What we don't want is a player who is still in Real Madrid just on the bench every single weekend, who, number two, has another much better player ahead of him and making about 15 million a year. That is completely unacceptable. And of course, I'm pretty sure that the information that Tomás González Martín is sharing with all of us today, it is very true and is, in my opinion, is very, very reliable. So we have to think Eden Hazard might leave Real Madrid in January. Maybe he doesn't want. I mean, maybe it's not. Okay, don't get me wrong. I mean, maybe it's not an option for him. What I'm saying pretty much is from the Real Madrid board members' perspective, if a good offer comes through, Eden Hazard might leave Real Madrid, or should leave, actually, Real Madrid this January. Maybe the player is thinking otherwise. Maybe the player is thinking in trying to improve significantly more, or play better, or whatever, or to be more professional, or is looking forward, for more opportunities or whatever. But from the Real Madrid board members' perspective, situation is that if they have an offer, if any team from the Premier League or whatever are very interested in signing Eden Hazard, they will be open, wide open and flexible to study the situation and maybe negotiate for the player. So now let's move on and let's talk about what is a very possible renewal contract situation in Real Madrid for the best, the one and only Vinicius Jr. According to Diario Marca, Real Madrid board members are thinking about the possibility to step ahead and try to bring in advance the renewal of the contract of Vinicius Jr. So the point is, he's doing such a good job that some board members are thinking this is the right moment for renew his contract. And this is the right moment for setting up a new and more updated salary for a player who is right now among the top 5 soccer players in Europe. So there's no way for a player who scores every single game, or almost every single game, assists every single game, and is the best player every single game, there's no way for him to be making about 3.5 million a season. Vinicius Jr. nowadays really deserves a most updated salary, and I'm talking about, well, Diario Marca is talking about 10 million per season, and that would be much fair. I mean, a much better salary and more fair salary for a player like Vinicius Jr. And I'm okay with that. I mean, I do agree with that. I truly believe this player has really earned that salary. 10, 11, 9 million, something like that. But there's no way for him anymore to keep making this ridiculous salary of about 3.5 million per season. That's no way. So we have to, compensate a little bit better to one of our best players nowadays. And I'm so happy to hear that, because I think that he really deserves that salary raise and, of course, an upgrade for his current contract in Real Madrid. So happy to hear that. And of course, Vinicius Jr., I mean, if this happens, if this renewal happens, that means Vinicius Jr. might stay in Real Madrid until 2027. Right now, his current contract, it has to expire. What year they said? I think it's 2025, 2024, 2025, whatever. But it's going to be apparently until 2027. So very good news for Real Madrid. And now the last two stories, I will cover some information from Erling Haaland and Kylian Mbappe. Information that is coming out, by the way, from Fabrizio Romano. As far as Erling Haaland, let me tell you what. Erling Haaland, the other day, Sebastian Kehl is the sporting director of Borussia Dortmund, has recognized that Borussia Dortmund will try to become another option, a very competitive, a very attractive option for keeping Erling Haaland on the squad. So that means that he's recognizing at the same time that there will be a very hard race, a lot of cutting throat competition for signing Erling Haaland the next year. And that includes to some of the best clubs in Europe. I'm talking about Chelsea, Manchester City, Real Madrid, and Borussia Dortmund is the one who wants to join that race, which is funny because Erling Haaland plays for Borussia Dortmund nowadays. So they shouldn't have any problem to keep the player on the squad, but it is problematic. It is problematic because the player wants to leave. And it's funny as well because it is not the last year contract for Erling Haaland in Borussia Dortmund. So they might posture or they might have a position like the Paris Saint-Germain position last summer with Kylian Mbappe and say to every single team interested in signing Erling Haaland, they could say, hey, we're not negotiating for this guy. We are going to keep this guy. We don't want him to get out of the squad because we want to retain the player in the squad. And they might, have that super close and rocky position so not to have to negotiate for Erling Haaland with anybody. You know what I'm saying? But again, the mentality, it's a completely different story in Borussia Dortmund. And they are assuming that if the player wants to leave, what they have to do is try to compete, is try to convince the player to stay. But of course, they are assuming that that race for signing Erling Haaland is going to be hard. And although they want to be one of the participants in that race, it is going to be very difficult for them. And of course, everybody is expecting from the Norwegian player to sign for Real Madrid next year. So if he is assuming that the player wants and will leave Borussia Dortmund, I actually do agree with that. And I think that the player not only will leave, but also will sign for Real Madrid, which is even better. And now let me move on. And let's talk about the latest news from Fabrizio Romano, who claims that Real Madrid is still working on the signing of Kylian Mbappe for January, but in a much more quiet and silenced way. That means Real Madrid doesn't want to make Paris Saint-Germain angrier than they are right now. So Real Madrid doesn't want to, any kind of conflict with Paris Saint-Germain. They don't want any kind of problem with Paris Saint-Germain. They don't want to keep pushing to Kylian Mbappe and get very upset to Leonardo or Al-Khelaifi. They don't want, Florentino Perez doesn't want any conflict with anybody, right? But that doesn't mean he's not working on the signing of Kylian Mbappe for the next month of January, which is something that is happening because Fabrizio Romano told to us in his YouTube channel last night that Real Madrid is still working on that. The problem is Leonardo, Al-Khelaifi, and all these board members from Paris Saint-Germain are very, very upset towards Real Madrid and the Real Madrid attitude and all the stuff. So they are blaming us for this whole thing and this whole situation. And of course, they will be very mad at us. And of course, if they have a chance to sue Real Madrid for any single, wrong thing or wrong step or bad move that we did with Kylian Mbappe, they will sue to Real Madrid if they have a chance. So that might be a problem for Real Madrid in the future. So let's see what happens. But this is all the things I got for you all, guys. And of course, don't forget to follow me in my TikTok account. Of course, you can also get the Real Madrid jersey in the first kit, the second kit, or the third kit in my new online store, jotamadrid.com. You have the link below. And of course, subscribe to the channel and see you in the next video.